In this video, how to build a WordPress plugin and expand the possibilities of your website. So understanding the WordPress documentation and website is a little difficult when you're trying to develop for WordPress. Understanding the documentation for building plugins can be kind of difficult, but it's actually really simple. So we're going to show you how to build a really simple plugin for your WordPress website. So let's get started. So here on ideapro.com, I have a default WordPress installation at ideapro.com/example, and we're logged into the back end here. Now if we go over here to plugins, if you'll notice, I have no plugins on this installation. And the reason is because the default WordPress comes with Hello Dolly and Akismet. Neither one of those plugins are plugins that I use, so I immediately delete them before I even upload WordPress to the website. So we're going to go in now and create a really simple plugin to get you started. All right, so we're going to go to Sublime, which is the text editor I use, and you can use Dreamweaver or Text Notepad or whatever you use. We're going to go into ideapro.com under the example folder, because this is our WordPress install here. So ideapro.com under example, WP content, and then plugins. And as you can see here, there's just the index.php page, which comes in the plugins folder. So on plugins here, we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to name that folder what we want to call the plugin. So I'm going to name it IdeaPro Example. Okay. So now if you look into plugins, I have this folder called IdeaPro plugin. I have this folder called IdeaPro Example. Now there's nothing inside of it. This index.php page is under plugins here. So if we close this, see there's nothing in it. So now we're going to create a page in that folder. We're going to create a new blank page. We're going to start out with our PHP brackets, and then we're going to do a comment out. We're going to do another star, and then we're going to do a star, star, close. So now after this star, we're going to say plugin name, and we're just going to call it IdeaPro Example Plugin. Okay, and then we're going to save this file. Now we're going to save it under the IdeaPro Example folder under plugins. And now we're going to save this file the same name as the folder above it. So .php. So idea-pro-example.php. So now that really is all that's required to create a plugin. Now if we go into our plugins here and refresh this page, now we have IdeaPro Example Plugin. And if we activate this plugin, it activates, and now it's activated. Now this plugin isn't going to do anything because we really haven't given it anything to do. But it's activated. We can deactivate it. We could delete it if we wanted to. We're going to keep it activated. And now the other thing that we can do is we can add in a description. So we'll say description. This is just an example plugin. If we save that, go back in here to plugins. So now we have a description here that is the description. So there's multiple things that you can add up here in this little area that describes the plugin. You can add the author, the version number. It's important to add the version number in there. I'm not going to really go into all the details that you can do with adding this. A lot of times, if it's not a plugin we're going to use on multiple sites, we may not even add a version number. It all depends. So we will now put a little bit of code in here to make the plugin actually do something. So one of the easiest things to do is to write a function called, let's just call it Idea Pro example function. Okay. Now, what we're going to make this function do is it's going to be a shortcode. So we're going to say add shortcode. Now, this function here is part of the WordPress codex. And we can go into more videos and details about that later on. So what this add shortcode does is it allows us to create a shortcode that we can use on pages and posts. So the first argument that we're going to pass through add shortcode is what we're going to use in the page and post as a shortcode. So here we're just going to say example. Now this is really simple. I would recommend using something that is a little bit more detailed so that you know what it is. Maybe Idea Pro example or whatever your function actually does. And then the second argument is actually the function name here. So we're going to put this in here. And then in here is where we put in what we want the actual plugin to do. So we're going to tell it to just return a string of text. So we're going to say $, information is equal to, this is a very basic plugin. Now, on a plugin, you always want to return the content. You never want to print it out. You never want to print out the content of the shortcode. And I'll explain why in just a second. So we're going to save this. We're going to go back into our plugins here, and you see that our plugin hasn't changed. But now if we go to posts, hello world, I'm going to use this one since this is the default here on this front page. Now if we go in here to our shortcode and we add square brackets and we say example and update. Now if we go back and we refresh this page, this is a very basic plugin. So there it passes through that little bit of text that we put here in this plugin. And we got a capital H. We're going to change that. All right. And change that. So now this is a very basic plugin. Now the reason why we return the information here, and you can call this string whatever you want, content, as long as you return it here, content. It's still going to return the same information. And the reason why we return it instead of printing it is because the way the structure's set up is you want this information to show up wherever you put in the shortcode. So if we go back in here after the shortcode, and this is the text after the shortcode. We hit update, refresh the page. Now this is the text after the shortcode. So we have, welcome to WordPress, this is your first post, edit or delete it, then start writing. So we have that text here. We have our shortcode, which shows up here. And then we have this little bit of text after the shortcode that shows up here. So if we go back into our code and we don't return this, we refresh, it's not going to show anything at all. It's going to disappear. And if we go into here and tell it to print content or echo the content, now it's going to put it above any of the other information. And so it's not going to return it in between this two pieces of text. It's going to put it above anything in this content area here. So that's the reason why it's important to return instead of print. We'll actually just take this out and refresh. So now it's back down here. So now if you know HTML or you know PHP, you can write a simple plugin. Now inside of this, you can do all sorts of things. So if we want to go in and add more information, so content is equal to, we'll add a div, and we'll say this is a div, and we'll add content, and this is a block of paragraph text. So now if we refresh, that information shows up. This is the very basic plugin, this is a div, and this is a block of paragraph text. So inside of this, as long as you're returning this information, it will show up on the page. And that's as easy as it is to create a plugin. Now, I suggest making a plugin for almost everything that you do if you're going to use that on another website, or if it's a lot of code. And the reason why is because eventually you're going to install a plugin that someone else has built that could possibly break your website. So it makes it really easy to turn off plugins until you've figured out which plugin is conflicting with the other or conflicting with your website. Now, what we just did is very simple code, and we could have easily just taken this code, and we'll take it out of here. We could have easily just went into the theme that we're using, 17, and went to the functions page here and added this on the functions page. So right now we took it out of our plugin here. So if we refresh, it's gone. Now it says example because it doesn't know what to do with that short code. And so now if we go into the functions page, we'll go down here at the very bottom and we'll paste in this function and we'll refresh, and now this information is back. So it doesn't necessarily, we didn't necessarily have to build a plugin to do what we just did, but it's also dirtied up our functions.php page. So anything, especially if you're using a pre-built theme or a standard theme that came with the WordPress install, I would suggest doing everything as a plugin. Because if you do it in the default functions.php page, when the theme updates, it will overwrite any functions that you put on this page. Now, you can create what's called a child theme of the current theme. So we're using 2017 here as our default theme that comes with WordPress. If we wanted to create a child theme of 2017, we would do that, and then on the functions page of that page, we could actually add in the code, and that would work. But I would suggest doing it as a plugin. That way you can turn it on and off. It's also good if you ever decide to change themes, you're not losing that information. So you can change themes, you're not going to lose the plugin. So a lot of times we build plugins for just about everything because the client may change the theme later on. Let me know your questions in the comments. Hope this video helped some of you build a plugin. It's very basic. It's not as hard as the documentation and other videos make it out to be. It's actually really simple to build plugins. And hope this video helped you. Make sure to like it and subscribe for the next video. Thanks.